Once again, I would like to wish you congratulations, all the graduates, families, friends, those that are here in support of those graduates. And I would also like to wish you a happy Sabbath. I hope that you have soaked in all the congratulations and positive comments that you've heard so far today, and you'll continue to hear those over the weekend. Soak those up. Tuck them away in a safe and protected place, because over the next few minutes, we are headed in a direction that is not so congratulatory. I'm going to turn into a pessimistic Paul here, grumpy Uncle Dybdahl, for the first part of our sermon. But there's some good news. There is some good news. We'll move from exposing and exploring a painful truth, and we will then move to reflect on a phrase from Jesus that I believe shows us a way forward. So first, the painful truth, and then a Bible story that shows us a way forward. There's a certain type of speech that is typically given at graduation time, kind of a standard presentation. A graduation genre. I think you probably already know, what would constitute that graduation genre, familiar to many of us. If you do a quick Google search for graduation speech examples, you will find scores of resources online, and they will illustrate this graduation genre. I'm going to now read actual quotes from two of these online resources. Sampletemplates.com, giving them a little bit of publicity here, and docstock.com. And as I read these, I'd like for you to critique, evaluate what you hear. All right? You ready? Here goes. Quoting. I hope that all of us here today can take this personal accomplishment as an example of how anything is truly possible when we put our minds to it. So you don't have to answer out loud, but do you see any problems with that statement? Here's the second quote. It is after graduation that you soar to the world of new dreams and aspirations. It is after your graduation that you spread your wings wide and fly out to explore the world around in pursuit of your goals. Any issues with that statement? Let's go back to that first brave declaration. Remember the line, anything is possible. Anything is truly possible when we put our minds to it. I have a problem with this statement because the statement is false. It's not true. And if you're a graduate, second statement that I read, if you are a graduate, imagining that after graduation you're going to soar out into the world, you're going to spread your wings wide and fly. I have some news for you this morning. It doesn't matter what your area of study was or how high your GPA is. It doesn't matter how passionate you are about your field of study. And it does not matter how furiously you may flap your arms. You will not fly because you are not a bird. This is the harsh reality. This is the painful truth that we need to explore. In this world, we can't do anything we want to. Even if we set our minds to it, even if we sacrifice and save and study and work, and even if we try again, we can't do anything that we want to do. I would like to be an Olympic gold medalist in the 100-meter sprint. I would like to break Usain Bolt's record in the 100-meter sprint. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for me. We have 3 children. It would only have seemed fair, right, that my wife and I sort of take turns bearing and birthing and nursing our children. Didn't happen. Didn't happen for us. Physically, right, this is obvious. Physically, we have limitations, all of us. We're differently abled. We can improve, we can grow, we can train, but there are certain thresholds that we cannot cross. We also have mental and emotional limitations. We are differently abled mentally. Math. Do you feel a cold chill when I say that? Not everyone feels that cold chill. There are people that quiver with excitement. Languages, philosophy, poetry, the ability to be in a situation and read people's emotions and respond appropriately. Physics, music, right? There are these different areas, these different fields of study. We are differently abled. We're further limited by the society that we live in. We may have the necessary physical, mental, emotional abilities, but because of our age or our gender or our race or our religion or our appearance or mistakes that we may have made in the past, because of those things, society will close some doors of opportunity for us. It's not fair. It's not right, but it's a reality in this broken world. We could even talk about moral and spiritual limitations. There are lucrative careers that we may not be able to go into because of moral convictions. Allegiance to God may mean we cannot do that. And there are some graduates, perhaps even here this morning, afternoon now, there are some graduates that may be struggling with this challenge, even in this moment. And spiritual limitations. The Bible teaches that followers of Jesus receive spiritual gifts, but they are given, according to the Bible, as the Holy Spirit determines, right? That means that other people will be able to do things for God that I can't do. When we come up against these limitations, it can be disappointing. It's difficult, painful even. And it's only natural that we would compare ourselves, right? We would compare ourselves with others who don't face the same limitations. I was thinking of the spiritual gifts example. Like, here's my friend. They have the gift of miraculous powers, and I have the gift of helps. It's like that comparison might leave us feeling sometimes not too terribly encouraged. With the comparison will come unhappiness. When we see doors of opportunity open for other people and those doors closed for us, it's not just painful, but our pain can turn into resentment and anger, discouragement, despair, even hopelessness. When we're kept from doing something, we sometimes settle for doing nothing. No, we can't just fly freely in this world. We can't do anything we want to do. It's a painful truth, a harsh reality. So how should we respond? How should we live in a world like this? There's an answer from Jesus, and I think we might even say there are other possible answers from Jesus. But I want to focus on an answer from Jesus. It's a phrase, actually, and it's nestled in a gospel story that's actually quite famous. We heard the story read to us just a bit ago. It appears in multiple gospels, and I'll be reading from the gospel according to Mark chapter 14. The setting is this. It's just a couple of days before Jesus' crucifixion. He's in Bethany. It's a small town. It's less than 2 miles outside of the holy city of Jerusalem. It's over the hill, the Mount of Olives, and it's on the other side of the hill. There are multiple indications that Bethany was known as a place of sickness and a place of poverty. Bethany was not Beverly Hills. Maybe a Ross Dress for Less, a Walmart, a Rite Aid pharmacy, but no Nordstrom, no Saks Fifth Avenue, not in Bethany. And Jesus is there for a meal. I pick up the story in chapter 14, verse 3, while he was in Bethany. And I'm going to pause here just for a moment. There is so much in this story that's like preachable material. We're just going to skim over that and settle on the one phrase. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. Harshly. Lots of questions we could ask. How did Simon get better? He was a leper? He was healed? Who is the woman? Now, some of you know from other Gospels, you have an idea of the answer, but Mark doesn't tell us her identity, doesn't give us her identity. And how did she get the perfume? Made of pure nard. This is an extract from a root of a plant that is found in the regions of northern India. And we know from the passage, it tells us more than a year's wages. So we're talking about ointment in an expensive alabaster jar, flask, that costs tens of thousands of dollars, poured out on Jesus in one abundant application. And the complaint about the poor, it would make sense, right, given that this is Bethany. But then Jesus speaks. Then Jesus speaks. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her?" I love that response. Leave her alone. "She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want, but you will not always have me." And then here's the phrase. She did what she could. She did what she could. We all have things that we can't do, and so did she. So did she. In that first century world, there was actually a tightening of the restrictions on women. I can guarantee you that this woman, as she grew up, never had someone tell her, stretch out your wings and soar out into the world. You can do whatever you want to. She would not have heard those words of affirmation. At that point in history, at that time, and in that place, she would not have had access to education. If she was married, she would not have been able to divorce her husband. She would have been segregated in worship settings. She would have been expected to spend her time at home. If she went out, she would need to be veiled. She wouldn't be expected to talk to other men. That would be taboo. According to Jewish midrash, there were certain classes of people whose testimony was not allowed as evidence in a Jewish court. Gentiles, deaf mutes, gamblers, pigeon racers, slaves, children, the insane, and women. Imagine witnessing a murder, but being so considered so insignificant, so untrustworthy, so deceitful, that your testimony wouldn't even count as evidence. This woman had a long list of things that she could not do in the world of her day, but it seems not to have led to passivity or to despair. Somehow, and the story doesn't tell us how, somehow she got some perfume. And Jesus said to the critics of her, Jesus said, she did what she could. And in so doing, she stands in a long line of Bible characters who had limited options, but who did what they could. Rahab. She couldn't show a membership card as one of the children of Israel. She was a foreigner. She couldn't boast of an admirable occupation. She was in a city whose property values were about to come crashing down. But she hung a scarlet cord in her window. She did what she could. He was only a boy named David. He wasn't old enough to be a soldier. He couldn't wear Saul's armor. He couldn't command the armies of Israel to fight. He had no such authority, but he could pray, and he could sing, and he had a sling, and he did what he could. We heard in the children's story today, children, all of us, with the help of God, God will enable us to do what needs to be done. We will be able to do what God wants us to do ultimately with His help. And I think if we look back at history, not just the Bible stories, but if we look at history, history is filled with beautiful stories of people who couldn't do everything, but who did what they could. And the beautiful parts of our lives are the stories of people doing what they could. I thought back to this quarter, and I'll share just 3 very brief sort of vignettes. After class, midway through the quarter, after class, a student came up to the front. They were carrying something. And she shared the story first. There was something that had struck her in class. She was a painter, and she had painted me a picture. There was a note on the back explaining the picture. She did what she could. That picture is still in my office. It's in my office all quarter long. Not every day was good this quarter. The picture in my office reminded me of something very, very important. She did what she could. Right at the end of the quarter, the last day of class, I had a student almost sheepishly bring me a little bag. It was a pastry. And they said to me, she said, I was in town and I had an overwhelming sense that I should get this for you. I can testify that sense was led by the Holy Spirit. In my world religions class, a young man, a student, he wore a t-shirt. I liked the graphic on the t-shirt, and I mentioned something to him midway through the quarter. And I think once later on, a couple weeks later, he had on the t-shirt, and I said something to him again. I was like, hey, you got the t-shirt on. The time of our test, we were actually locked out of the room for a few minutes. Some of you may remember this, world religion students, if you're here. Locked out of the room, and I saw, as we're kind of waiting there by the door, I saw him, and he had the t-shirt on again. And then he came up to me, and he said, we didn't have to say much, but he said, did you see? He said, I wore this for you today. So simple. So beautiful. they did what they could. Some of you may have heard the story of Johnny the beggar. Not sure if anyone has heard of him. The story is told by a speaker and author, Barbara Glanz. She spoke at a convention, I don't know all of her background, but she spoke at a convention for a large grocery chain. She urged people to create memories for customers so they'd want to come back. She even gave her contact information. She said, if you have any great service stories, let me know. About a month later, she was contacted by a young man, Johnny. He'd heard her presentation, and this is what he told her. I'm just a bagger in the store, and I have Down's syndrome. But I wanted to think of a way I could make a difference. I decided I like sayings, so each day I'm going to pick out one that I like, and my dad and I will print it out on the computer. I'll cut out the quote in strips and sign my name on the back of each one. The next day when the customers come through, I'll just drop a strip right in their bags and say, I hope you enjoy my quote of the day. He wanted to know from Barbara, was that a good plan? And she said, yes, that sounded like a good idea. And that was the end of that. Except that she got a call a few weeks later, Barbara did. This time it was from the store manager, and there was a problem. The store manager had been walking through the store and noticed one line was like 3 times longer than any of the other lines. He explained to Barbara, I went to the back of the line and I suggested that customers move to another checkout, and they wouldn't budge. Nobody moved because they were in Johnny's line. There were lots of things Johnny couldn't do, but he did what he could. Graduates and non-graduates, very predictable here. You know exactly what my appeal will be. Let's not live lives of comparison and resentment and passivity and despair over what we can't do. If in this moment, and there probably are people here who in this moment may be facing a situation that seems helpless and hopeless. And we may have even said aloud or to ourselves, well, I guess I can't do anything about it. No. Do what you can. Pray, sing, teach, paint, build, research, listen, heal, speak, forgive, touch, love. Do what you can. Think of the woman in Bethany. Think of Rahab the prostitute. Think of the boy named David. And I'd like for us to think about just one more. A man whose options were almost like there were no options, it would seem. And I'm thinking now about the thief on the cross. He couldn't change his past. His life is ending in physical agony and in shame. He's attached to a cross. He's hanging there for 3 hours. It is noon. Death for him is very, very near. But in that helpless moment, he did what he could. And he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. I don't know where you are spiritually right now, and I certainly don't know exactly where life will take you. But even if you find yourself in a place where all the doors are closed and there's nothing, it seems there's nothing you can do, this option will always be available to you. You will always be able to call on Jesus. And if you do, Even though you die, you will rise. You'll be going home. You'll rise from the grave. You will rise up into the sky. Yes, indeed, this will happen. You will fly, even though you are not a bird.